Hello friends, I have YouTube, I believe, up and joining me. Let's see if we can get Facebook to join us as well. All right, hello. This is this is Daily Art Adventure number 878. 878 and counting. Let's get right down to business here. This is a project I started yesterday, so if you want to watch what has happened up until this point, you can go and look there. I'm still having interesting mechanical issues. Whoops. As you just experiment, you just did a face plant. You all just did a face plant on my drawing table. I forgot to remedy this situation overnight during the break. Sorry about that. So we'll just do what we did yesterday and have a very crude system. I am really anxious to get back to my portrait work, but part of my life as an artist is you have to pay the bills first. So pay bills first. Well, the portraits are paying bills. Anyway, never mind. It's too complicated. But there's an order to things. I'll just leave it at that. All right, so I'll zoom in a little bit. Let me show you the photo reference. This is a commissioned piece. Here's a photograph, and actually I went on Google and Google Maps and found some supplementary photographs of this building, which actually did help me considerably, help me to see what's happening on the side of the building, because this is the one that my client sent to me, but as you can see, I've actually changed the angle slightly. And so a fairly, probably most of you would concur, a fairly lackluster subject matter, but it's clearly a building that's near and dear to somebody's heart. This is a commission by a woman who I don't know, my wife met, a commission from a woman for her husband, and this is the husband's place of business. I think it's a one of those, I forget what you call it, medical clinics, you know, early assignment. What's in the name of it is First Step Services. First Step Services. Anyway, so that's the assignment at hand. Now, before I launch into that, let me, if some of you perhaps watched me yesterday, bear with me just a second. Let's see if I can get my Facebook monitor up and running so I can. Yes, there we go. Good. I am learning the system little by little. All right. I worked on this yesterday. You can watch me do this. And I started this and finished it this morning. And I'm showing you these partly because some of you saw me do this yesterday and you might want to see how it ended up. That's how it ended up. And this, and here's another one just from my files for the same client. This is all what I call commercial work. This is all illustrations, architectural renderings, and so on. And you'll see that they have a slightly different feel because they have a slightly different purpose. The purpose of this commercial work is to show a client, whoever the client may be, the purpose is to show a client, in this case, what the landscaping is going to look like. Then the client, of course, signs off, yes, I like that, and so on, and then hires my client to do the work. Get it? So it's very commercial work, and I don't mind doing it. It certainly helps pay the bills. And of course, I mean, it's better to sit here doing any kind of artwork than it is to be doing just about anything else as an artist, right? So I don't complain about this in the least, but wanted to show you that work. Now this, on the other hand, is not quote unquote, it's a commission, but it's not commercial work. It crosses that very fuzzy line from, when it is a fuzzy line, from illustration to fine art, whatever that means. Now, I've described it many times in different ways. I'll describe, my most typical description is when you're doing commercial illustration, it's first and foremost a picture of something. It's a rendering. That's why we call it, architectural rendering. It's a picture of something. That's the most important function. With fine art, the pictureness is secondary, even though, as you can imagine clearly for my client, it's very important that it be representational. But the abstract elements of design, line, shape, color, design, value, texture, shape. I missed one in there because there's supposed to be 7. Line, shape, color, value, texture, value. Anyway, you got the idea. Those abstract, in other words, it's more important that there be interesting colors happening, which there certainly are. It's more important that there be interesting line, which there is. It's more important that there be interesting values, which there will be. All of those are paramount over the pure illustrative aspect of the picture. Now, I do think it's interesting. I thought about this before I started the broadcast, that let me pick up my, whoops, that was dangerous. Is that, okay, that's dry. On my architectural rendering here, for instance, I did all of the sketching on a separate piece of paper. I think I already threw it out. Let's see if I can, by any chance, can I find it? Oh, it's a mess. It's pulling this out of my wastebasket. So now it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Anyway, I did all of my sketching on separate pages, scanned it into Photoshop, tweaked it in Photoshop, printed it out, and then traced it. So in other words, here's just it is a fascinating contrast between no, this is just to keep the oils from my hands off my painting. It is a fascinating contrast that for an illustration, I do all the underlying work off this page, is hidden. All the preparatory studies are separate, and the only thing I do here is trace. So you understand? This what you're looking at here is a light table. I'll turn the light on just for a second. So I put this down and I put this on top of them and I traced it. All right, so all the preparatory work for an illustration is done out of sight. In contrast to that, all the preparatory work for a fine arts piece is done on the surface itself. Now, I'm not saying this is a hard and fast rule, but it is an interesting contrast. Many years ago, some art expert said the difference between illustration and fine arts, and I don't think, this is not the bottom line, but it's an element, and it's just, I find it interesting, that in fine art, there should be signs of struggle. And indeed, there actually are signs of struggle here. Look here, here's the first drawing I did was yellow, and this was my guess, my first guess as to where this line should go. And here's my second guess. My second guess was in orange, and it's right there. My third guess was in purple. It's right there. And then my final line is the black one right there. So that's a good classic example of what is meant by struggle. Attempt number 1. No, that's not right. Attempt number 2, orange. That's closer, but it's still not right. Attempt number 3, purple. Okay, that's almost perfect. Attempt number 4, black. That's right. So that's a good classic example of struggle. And in one of and you see that throughout this whole drawing, one of the beauties, if you will, of real fine art is that it shows authentic human struggle. And I don't need to get all huge philosophical about that or anything like that. Anyway, that is just one concept about what the difference. Now, before I start, and if you want to see how I did this, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go back to yesterday and watch me do it. I'm going to do a little bit of what I did yesterday, much to my surprise, actually. I didn't plan to do this. I didn't think I'd be doing this at first, but I did a little bit of lifting out with a Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. I'm going to do a little, I missed a piece yesterday. So I'm going to come in here and do a little, I did a whole bunch of this yesterday. You can go back and watch that broadcast if you want to see me do more of it. But I'm doing just a little bit more right here. And again, if you want to see how I accomplished everything on this paper. By the way, I am working on 300-pound, good 300-pound watercolor paper. Like most of you watercolorists, I much prefer, of course, the 300-pound to the lightweight 140-pound. Really makes a difference, especially when you're abusing the paper the way I am. All right, let's start painting. Now, here's the way I work. You don't need to work this way. It goes without saying. But here is the way I work. I'm going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between watercolor and pen and ink. At the moment, I'm going to do a little bit more pen and ink. Now, I did most of the outline drawing I did with a fountain pen yesterday, right? All of this outline is fountain pen. But the details I'm doing with a simple felt tip pen. This one happens to be made by Accurate, A-C-U-R-I-T, 0.2 millimeter, whatever. This part of the building up here, of these two buildings, is shingles. This part down here is brick, and I'll be trying to indicate shingles and bricks in different ways, using different techniques to indicate. I will certainly not be drawing shingles or bricks over the entire surface. That, in my opinion, would be a huge mistake. So I'm going to do just a few more minutes of pen and ink, and then I'm going to switch to watercolor, and then I'll come back to pen and ink and go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. That helps me stay loose, might be one word for it. That's not a very good, it's not my favorite word at all, but it keeps me from getting stuck in a rut and accidentally drawing too much or accidentally painting too much, because I'm not going to stay in either painting or drawing very long before I before I switch to the other. So that's why I'm going back and forth. That's enough. Let's do some painting. And here is my watercolor tray. There's most of it anyway. All right, there you go. I'll let you see that just for a moment. Oh, I know. First of all, I have a mistake that I need to fix. Okay, so here over these two doors, let me show you the photograph. This is just a mistake. The archway here is larger in relationship to this triangle, and I made it too small. So I think that I can remedy that simply by painting fairly carefully. Whoops, that's too dark. I'm one of those watercolorists, by the way, who pretty much permanently has a tissue in my left hand, a brush in one hand and a tissue in the other. Now this is what I'm doing right now is not completely correcting my mistake, so it will take a little bit more work than this, but it's getting us in the right direction. All right, the next thing I think I'm going to do is these gables up here are very distinct tan color. So I'm going to just mix up a batch. Nope, needs to be yellower than that. More yellow, more yellow. And by yellow, by the way, I mean in this case, yellow ochre. Let's try this. Okay, that might work. Nope, too dark. I talked a little while yesterday about the condition of my paper where I used the Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. So all the light areas here, including where I'm painting right now. Of course, I have, from a watercolorist point of view, I might say I have completely destroyed the paper. Right? That would be an exaggeration. That would be a typical watercolor emotional response. I don't know why I think watercolorists are more emotional than other artists. But anyway, evidently that's what I think. I didn't realize I thought that till right that minute. But all right, now let's do some the roof of these little gables here is a distinct orange. And I think these gables up here are the same. But listen to me. Just because they are this color does not mean I have to paint them this color, right? My primary concern is interesting color. My secondary concern is realistic or accurate color. I'm more concerned about overall composition than I am similitude, than I am realism. I am certainly concerned with realism. You can tell this is a picture of a building, right? But it is, again, it's a secondary concern. It's not primary. And I feel like for myself, it's pretty important to keep that distinction clear. All right, now this gable right here, whoops, way too dark. This gable, this bow window or bay window, the roof is dark brown. Actually much darker than what I've illustrated here, than I've indicated, but that's okay. This is as dark as I want to get. I don't want it to be as dark as it actually is. And I was about to paint this part brown and then realized, no, I think it's a different color. Looks more like lead. So there we go. I don't really have any specific order, I don't think, for what I'm painting. What I'm painting next, you know, it's just very intuitive. Whatever I feel like painting next. I don't have any structure. Just whatever I feel like painting next is good enough. There, I like that. Looks nice. Once again, I'm certainly looking at at my photographic reference. That it's my which is this right here. You even see these windows? I actually followed those windows pretty carefully. I saw no reason not to. I said, oh yeah, that's a good arrangement of, it's blinds, shades, window shades, open and closed inside the offices here. And I don't have to follow it realistically by any means. But it seemed to me like a good arrangement of that dark blue. I'm thinking. Let's go to a larger brush again and take another whack at these bushes down here. In the photograph, I hope my client will be okay with this. I wish I had thought to mention it to my client before I started the job, because in the photograph there are no bushes here, but in my research online, typically there are bushes there. So what this shows to me is that the landscaping crew when this photograph was taken, they were right in the middle of taking out the old bushes and putting in new ones. So I failed to get permission from my client. Say, hey, by the way, can I put bushes in there? But I feel like it's a fairly safe guess that it's okay to do that. All right, now I haven't done anything with these trees up here. Whoa, that's way too dark. Watercolor is, in so many ways, it's so fun. In so many other ways, it's so frustrating, isn't it? But one of the ways it's fun about it is you put down a mark, and if it's too dark, first of all, you just blot it instantly. At least that's what I do. Blot it up, and then you simply add more water to the mixture, so that now it's a lighter colored paint. I love of course, I'm not saying anything new, but I love the transparency, the transparent magic of watercolor. That is indeed where the magic is with watercolor, is in the transparency of it. So I'm doing a very, at the moment, dull, neutral gray. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake, quote unquote, not a representational mistake, but a compositional mistake. This tree really must go off the top of the page. I'm surprised that I did that. I usually catch that particular error very quickly. Okay, why is that an error? Because if this tree doesn't, I'm in the picture? Yeah. If this tree doesn't punch through the top of the painting, then I have essentially this is going to be changed over here. I have essentially an unbroken boundary at the top of the painting, and that is an unpleasant experience. The eye does not like to see an unbroken one color all the way across. That's a very, very, very simple, universal trick that can help your landscape paintings, if you're a landscape, well, any painting. But it's the most common mistake. It is one of the most common mistakes made in landscaping, especially in the sky. If you have, for instance, a blue sky, and what would cause an artist, quiz time, what would cause an artist to paint, say, a blue sky all the way across the top of the painting? What would cause an artist to do that? Right, the photograph. An artist would typically often do that because that's the way it is in the photograph. And I hope just by me saying that, you kind of do a open palm slap to the forehead, palm to forehead, saying, "Oh my goodness, that would be a mistake, wouldn't it?" Don't do something simply because it's in the photograph, right? All right. So I'll add some ink to those lines, to these lines up here in a little while to finish off that illusion of a tree going all the way up. I'm thinking, bear with me here, I'm thinking for a moment. And I think, I keep going off the camera for some of you guys, don't I? Let's expand a little bit. Hello, Aslan. Haha, good to hear from you. Who else do we have? Somebody from China who needs to translate for us. The paper is arches or arche. Oh, wonderful. Good to have you. Thank you for trying your English anyway. Taiwanese. Thank you so much for speaking with us. It's late there. Oh my goodness. Oh, good. Taiwanese. Speaking Taiwanese. Wow. Thank you, Uncle, for trying to engage him in Taiwanese. Hello, Light Blue. Hello, Michael. Thank you very much. I'm enjoying this little diversion, but frankly, I'm really anxious to get back to my portraits. That's right. I'm enjoying more than that. I am enjoying the break. All right, I'm going to do some plain old-fashioned blue up here in the sky. Not necessarily over the entire thing, however, right? When I did my, I have a scrubber brush. Here we go. This is a part of my watercolor kit. It's a bristle brush. I just cut off the other end because a bristle brush is pretty stiff, so it's good for scrubbing. So I want to soften. There we go. Just make an edge disappear over there, and same thing over here. I think I want some of this to disappear just a little bit. There we go. Now I'm painting with my bristle brush. Hey, by the way, speaking of bristles, Uncle 60, yesterday, you told us, I'm getting away from watercolor for a minute. You said if we stuck synthetic nylon bristles in hot water, that it would fix them. And I did all these brushes and probably another half a dozen or a dozen more. And I want to tell you that it worked better on some than others. It worked quite well on this brush. Let me see if I re-wet this brush. Can I bring this to a point? Almost. So there are other issues with these brushes besides the fact that they frayed out. Here's the brush that it did the most good on. This was frayed all over the place. And several of these little ones came out quite well. Some of them did not. It didn't help at all. But it did help. So there you go. And I'm going to answer a question, and that is what temperature, because Uncle 60 said hot water. And my experience was very hot water. So first of all, I got out my wife's tea maker, a pot, and poured boiling water into a little dish, and then very shortly after pouring the boiling water, I stuck the brushes in. So it was very, very hot water, seemed to do the trick. I tried some not so hot water, and that did not work as well. So thank you, Uncle. That it was worth the little bit of time that I invested in it, and it's a trick that I will pull out again in the future to revive nylon or synthetic brushes, the plasticky fake brushes, you know, that most of us pick up over the years whenever we're not doing a bristle brush or a real sable. Now, do not do that to real brush. Do not do that to sable brushes. First of all, it'll melt the glue that is holding the bristles in, and it won't have any effect on real fibers anyway. So that's just for synthetic. So yay, that was a fun discovery there, Uncle 60. All right. Oh, I know what I'm going to do before I go back to some pen work. I'm going to indicate some bricks down here. Now, I don't know if you can see. I'll zoom in real tight just for a second. I don't know if you can see this, but the bricks and this wall is pretty typical. The bricks are dark and the mortar is light, which is good. That will really help me. That means I'm not going to paint the lines between the bricks, because that I would be making them darker, the reverse. Instead, I'm going to do what's here, and I'm going to try, I guess I'll turn it this way. Whoops. Okay, let me see if you guys are all seeing the right thing. All right, I'm going to paint a few bricks. Not too many. And I'm going to paint them different colors because that's the way they are in the photograph. The bricks are of various shades of brick color, various shades of brown basically, but some of them are distinctly blue-gray brown, so that's what I'm doing right now, some of those bluish-gray bricks. Most of you, I imagine, at some point in your art journey, you've learned this principle that, and this is an age-old trick. This is nothing new at all. That and a brick wall is the classic. A brick wall, a stone wall, rivets in a boiler, anything that's a little tiny detail like bricks that is repeated. You do not want to paint every single brick. You don't want to paint every single rivet in a boiler, to use kind of another funny old-fashioned image. You just want to do some, and then the viewer's eye will fill in the blanks and do the rest. Does that make sense? So that's a principle that I'm adhering to right at this moment. But here's another principle that's a little bit more abstract that I'm adhering to as well. As I said a little while ago, when I'm in the world, in the realm of fine arts, quote unquote, when I'm trying to create a beautiful image is more important than a realistic image. The abstract elements are more important. So for instance, right here, am I zoom in? Yep, right. Do you see this blush of yellow right here? There's an inexplicable, again, what I mean is it doesn't make any sense in the real world. Like in the photograph, there's absolutely no hint of a blush of yellow light right there, right? Am I making sense? No, none. Flat, boring, horrible. In fact, there's green up here, yellow here, pink here, pink over here. None of that is realistic. It's just beautiful. So, for instance, right here, when I was painting my little bricks, first of all, I made them lighter and I made them yellower because I want that little bit of that beautiful abstract accident to still be visible in the finished painting. I'm doing the same thing here. There's a little inexplicable burst of red-orange down here. And for me, it would be a mistake, like to obliterate that, to push that down, to diminish that by painting, say, ordinary brown bricks. The realist, and I don't know about you, but the realist voice that's inside my head, and he is always there. The realist voice is always chiming in when I'm doing a fine arts piece. And the realist voice is kind of grumpy, to tell you the truth. The realist voice, and this is kind of, my apologies to you, my fellow artists who are fantastic realists, but the realist voice in my head, he's kind of a grump-ass little old guy. And he says, "That ain't right." And he has a southern accent for, I don't know how to explain that. He has a southern country accent. He said, "That ain't right." That ain't right. What I'm saying is, that isn't right. That ain't right. That should be brown. Those bricks should be brown. No, those bricks should be brown. Bricks are brown. Are you stupid? Bricks are brown. That's a slight exaggeration of the realist voice inside my head, but it's kind of like that. I've actually done a whole lot more bricks here than I had ever planned on, so let me pull in the reins a little bit. But I'll just continue right down here. You see there's an inexplicable blush of green. Now, in this case, I know where it came from. It's because there's bushes down here, and the bushes, of course, bled out onto the brick wall. Now, okay, so the realist voice in my head goes, "That ain't right. Bricks aren't green. Those bricks should be green. Those bricks should be brown." All right. I've never done this before. Honestly, I've never done this. I've never given voice to the realist in my head, but I think I like it. I think it's a good way to understand it. There is a grumpy, and I don't know why he's grumpy. He's just grumpy because he's a realist. For goodness sake, I'm just a realist. I hope it's not that I have some kind of hidden animosity toward realism. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that at all. But anyway, I just painted bricks down here, and I painted them green. There's a little blush of, can you see it? Oh, hang on, let me make sure I'm pointing. A little blush of blue, not yellow, blue right here. See that? It's a dull blue, but it's bluish, so I painted the bricks blue. Now look at this wall. Let's just take a second to back up, regroup a little bit. All right. Look, just this wall right here. I've got yellow and orange, yellow, orange, red, purple, blue, green, brown, purple. All those colors in that brown wall. Now, I don't know about you, but that's just crazy. Are you with me? That is me slapping down. That is me slapping down the grumpy realist and say, yeah, complain all you want. Grump away, my friend. This is not about realism. This is about beauty. And at that point, the grumpy realist kind of folds his arm, frowns, folds his arm, sits down and shuts up. Because he doesn't have an awful lot to say about beauty. All he cares about is realism. That's part of the reason why he's so grumpy. Now, by the way, I'm nothing here against realist artists, and I'm not saying they're grumpy. I will admit, though, that the realist voice inside my head is a little bit grumpy. He's kind of stuck. Bless his little heart. He kind of stuck in the mud, stuck in his ways. He's not a free spirit. And again, I am not criticizing anybody who does realistic art. And I do realism every once in a while just for fun, just because it is so much fun, and just to show you that myself, to show the grumpy realist inside my head that I'm fully capable of doing hyperrealism. That my choice to do impressionistic beauty is a choice, it's not because I'm unable or incapable of doing realism. All right, we've talked about that before, and I don't need to talk about it anymore. That's enough. I'm really enjoying this purplish blue shading right now. Okay, let me back up because I know I keep going off the screen there. Just a minute. Let's back up and. Okay, I'm going to try to stay in the camera, I promise. To everybody, hello, we do have a few people. Hello, Suzanne Riccio. Thank you. Oh yeah, girl with the, Karen Pearson, good to have you on board again. Girl with the Pearl Earring. I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard about it. I think I would enjoy it a lot. I'm looking at your chats on Facebook. You go, oh yeah, how's the oh man, I'm missing some good stuff here. Uncle says, do I always use pen and ink on my watercolors? And the answer is no, I do not. Sometimes, every once in a while, I'll do a straight up, strict, realistic watercolor. Again, partly just for the discipline of it, just to show, not to show you, but to show myself that I can, and to sort of keep that tool sharp. I'll do a traditional watercolor, no pen and ink, no nothing, just realism. And again, it's kind of fun. I enjoy sinking my teeth into a super realistic painting every once in a while. Forgive me just a minute, you guys. I'm reading chats over here on YouTube. My goodness. Taiwanese, Japanese, and Uncle's got some Taiwanese going on here. We're getting impressed with people here. I see, so you have a keyboard that does it. I figured there must be something. I encourage you to learn transitional Chinese. Yeah. And light blue goes to Taiwan frequently. It's safe there. Wow. Yeah, light blue is American. Somehow I knew that. I don't know how. Uncle, are you from Argentina? I'd forgotten that. By way of, forgive me, Puerto Rico? Yeah, you guys are so cultured. Susan, I'm impressed. Are you? All right, forgive me. I know I'm making masks. Wow. No, Nancy's, my wife is not sewing. Perhaps she should be. No, we haven't done anything like that yet. I mean, we have some food stored up. We're starting today. We're not picking up the mail without gloves or spraying it down. Crazy, crazy times, eh? Who'd have thunk it? Who saw this coming? Nobody I know of. Oh, don't worry. I saw that. I saw the video where Bill Gates 4 years ago, 5 years, 6 years ago predicted blah, blah. But no, yeah. That's not exactly prophecy. That was just scientific observation. Watch out for viruses. All right. Time for me to think here for a minute. I am going to draw just a few bricks. Not many, mind you, just a few bricks here on this wall. I certainly want it to look absolutely like a brick wall, but it's a brick wall that's got life and interesting marks in it, interesting colors. You know what I wish I had done, and maybe I'll do it here in a bit. I want just a little bit of spattering in here. Just a little bit of, right at the moment I'm drawing spattering. That is not what I mean. I want some real spattering. And, are we still on camera? Yep. I am going to do a little bit of cross-hatching here and there. And I say cross-hatching, it may end up simply be, technically speaking, hatching. That is to say, no cross, just lines going one way. We'll see. I already did a little bit here on the man and the pedestrian and the dog. In my opinion, in my world here, where I do a lot of cross-hatching, it's real easy, I feel like, for me to get carried away with cross-hatching in a watercolor painting. It's like, for me, it's easy. Too much of a good thing would be what I think I slip into way too easily. So I'm going to be careful and not do too much watercolor. No, not do too much cross-hatching. Sorry, sometimes I got two brains trying to function here at the same time. My talking brain and my painting brain, and sometimes they get tangled up. If somebody, I think Uncle asked if I always do pen and ink with my watercolor, and the answer is no. I have several. Well, if you go to my website, Dan Nelson Art, and go to the website page, if you go to the watercolor page, it's very easy to pick out which ones are traditional and which ones are not. One of the very first broadcasts, honestly, that I did 3 years ago, when I started this daily art adventure, so that would be January of 2017. One of the very first broadcasts that I did actually was a side-by-side comparison between traditional. I did two paintings: a traditional watercolor painting and a one of my watercolor sketches like this, where I did pen and ink. And I invited people to vote which one did they like better. And I very clearly remember the results. It was almost perfectly 50-50. In other words, just as many people liked one as the other, and vice versa. And that was over on Facebook. And but the traditional watercolor illustration, and the two illustrations, they weren't the same, but they were comparable. They were both Victorian mansions here in America, big old houses, if I remember correctly. And the traditional painting took roughly 3 times as long, or to put it the other way around, the watercolor sketch took about 1/3 the amount of time to render as the traditional. So since just as many people liked the watercolor sketch as liked the traditional, that experiment a couple years ago really encouraged me in this, if you will, watercolor sketch experiment. I said, okay, well, good enough. It seems to be a toss-up. And since this technique is roughly 3 times faster, so now pretty much whenever I do a wedding painting, when people ask for a watercolor, I try to make it clear to them, look at my portfolio, look at my wedding painting. If you want to see, by the way, if you want to see some of my wedding paintings that are done in watercolor, almost all of them, I think all of them are watercolor sketches. That means I use pen and ink. I give myself permission to use opaque mediums, like gouache and so on and so forth. I give myself permission to cheat. As I always say, I would never get accepted into a Watercolor Society of America event with this watercolor sketch technique. And again, who cares? That's not what I'm trying to do. So anyway, that's my story. I still do some. I have in fact in my automotive page. That's another little diversion. I love doing automotive paintings every once in a while. I did a fire truck in watercolor. A photorealistic, no, actually technically it would just be a realism painting, not hyper-realism, but anyway, extremely realistic painting of a fire truck. It with just using a traditional watercolor technique. All right, here's another little detail that needs to be painted. Both of these front doors are color. Yeah, slate gray. So let's mix up some slate gray over here. Just basically just blue and brown mixed together to the right ratio, right? More blue than brown, I would say generally. While I've got some dark paint on my brushes, is there a neutral gray color? Is there anything in here that really, oh yeah, there is. Inside, this is brick inside here, so a little bit of brownish. Same thing over here. Oh, and the dog. I haven't gotten around yet to paying any attention to the color on the dog, so let's get that taken care of. I'm going to leave him, I think, quite abstract. I want it to look like a dog, but I don't want it to attract, that's too brown. I don't want it to attract a lot of attention, so just leave him pretty abstract. Same thing with the person walking the dog, of course. But a shadow would be a good idea. Let's do a little bit of gray on the road. That doesn't look very gray. Looks more brown, but it's all right. It's, whoops, way too dark. Just add some water to that. Ooh, that had a nice effect. Anchored the painting a little bit, didn't it? I didn't realize it was kind of flying away down here because of that, all the lightness down there. Painted a shadow yesterday of this building, but I think I can it needs to come out a lot more. There, that's nice, isn't it? Let's add some more. I haven't really even begun, I would say, to consider pushing, really getting the darks in place on this painting yet. So this right now is the first time that I've even begun, I think, to ask myself, okay, wait a minute here. Where are my darks? Right? One of the weaknesses, perennial, continual, ubiquitous weaknesses of watercolor paintings is, I'm dating myself here, but I call it the Barbra Streisand syndrome because of her song Misty Watercolor Memories. Memories, that's a line from an old song. Misty watercolor memories of the way we were. That, ladies and gentlemen, that shows you what most non-artists think of our watercolor paintings. And it's not complimentary. That was a hit in the 70s, gang. For you, anybody under 50. So watch out for that. Watch out for that misty watercolor syndrome. Watch out for that. It is not a good thing. And of course, there are two mediums, or three perhaps. If you put charcoal and graphite in the same category, they're both pencil-ish. There are two mediums that suffer often from a lack of adequate darks, and they are watercolor and graphite/charcoal. Okay, so just mark it down. If you're doing a work in charcoal or graphite or watercolor, there's a great tendency to fail to achieve. As I say when I critique, not that I'm critical, but when I'm called upon to critique artwork, this quote has come back to me. I found I found friends quoting me sort of along the lines of, as Dan Nelson would say, "Where's my 8, 9, 10s? Where's my 8, 9, 10s?" And by that I mean darker and darkest values. And the reason, it's quite simple. It's a simple technical reason. Why do watercolors and pencil and graphite, why do they all suffer from a lack of dark values? And the reason is because in both of those mediums, in order to achieve adequate darkness, you need to hit it typically. And now, unless you're really, I don't know what the word is. If you're a classic watercolorist and you know how to plan ahead, then you can lay down an adequate dark first pass, but you really have to know what you're doing. So for most of us, in order to achieve adequate darks in our watercolor, we have to do exactly what I'm doing right here, which is hit it again and again and again. And part of that, all of you watercolorists know this, but perhaps not all of you, because with one of the idiosyncrasies of watercolor paints is that they grow considerably lighter as they dry. So you put them down when they're wet and they go, "Ooh, yeah, that's perfect. Ooh, that looks great." And then 10 minutes later you go, "What? Where did my darks go?" Well, they dried. So and all of my watercolor friends are going, yep. Because you know very well that. So that's exactly what I'm doing for the last several minutes. As I said, I hadn't even given any thought until just a few minutes ago. I hadn't really given any thought to ultimate values, if you will, finishing values. Now, there's a great big area of my painting that related to that I haven't even tackled yet, and that is all of these shingles up here are very, again, here's my reference photo. Whoops. The bricks down here are very orange, And that's somewhat reflected here. But these are even more orange, orange-brown. And I haven't even started that yet, so. But please understand, won't you? I have two opposing forces working within me right now. One is the grumpy realist who wants me to paint all of this accurate color. Okay? And then there's the artist inside me that is saying, no, 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 be careful, be careful, be careful. Don't lose, for instance, this beautiful but inexplicable little blush of yellow. So that's why I just put some brown down and orange down and lifted it up almost immediately. So I have these two opposing forces working in my mind. One is realism, and the other is, to heck with realism. What we really care about is beauty. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I'm sure it does. Okay, so there's my first pass, if you will, at turning this orange, and I like it. At first, one of the things I like about it is I was very light-handed, and so I feel like I can come back again and intensify. And I don't know if you can tell that this roof, it's a hip roof. It comes down at a slight angle and then kicks out. So there's a change. Just barely shows up in the photograph, but I'm making it a little more obvious in my painting than it is in the photograph that the roof comes out, because I think my client knows, you know, what the shape of this building is, and I think that they'll get a kick out of seeing that I captured that realistically. Now this building over here, of course, is further away, so it gets a little bit less attention, and I feel like I can just, in this case, just plaster this brown orange, rust orange color over that whole wall. Yeah, it just recedes, sits back there where I want it to. Same thing with the brick color. I'm going to use the same exact color over here. I want this, the focal point, of course, is this building right here. I'm not even sure focal point is the right term for that. The focal point is probably the front door. So I will certainly be aiming to amplify the contrast right here. I already have some of that working. This roof, somebody commented yesterday, one of you commented that I sure do like orange. Well, I do. But this building, the whole building is orange. The roof is orange. The cedar shakes, that's what these shingles are called, cedar shakes, are very orange. And the bricks are quite orange. So again, I've got this little tug of war going on inside me between the realist that wants it to be realistic color and the artist who wants it to be beautiful color. So it's sort of a compromise between those two. Compromise isn't really the right word. It's more like a tension between those two impulses, more than a compromise per se. Guys are having a great chat. Yeah, thank you, Uncle, for suggesting people share. I love it. Thank you very much. Michael, not as old as me, though. Good. Good night in Taiwan. Bless you. Thank you for being here. I know I missed you already. Good. Michael, finished your cross-hatching and sold it. I agree. When we go out, we're going to use a mask. Oh, my wife didn't sew masks. She ordered them. I should have made that clear. Yeah, she weeks ago, actually, she was really ahead of the curve. She ordered some pretty fancy masks. Way to go. Yeah, a lot of us are stuck at home, aren't we? I am. I'm having a great time, as you can tell, but don't know if I'm going to be able to pay my bills, but 2 Barbaras, 3 Debras, Michael, it's Deborah. Thank you, Uncle. You're exactly. Is it Michael, who's Deborah? I keep forgetting which one of our friends is really Deborah. I think that's correct, right? Susan is just Susie. Way to go. By the way, just to word to my friends on Facebook, I'm glad you're watching, but if you want to catch a little more action, you just have to switch over to YouTube. YouTube, Dan the Art Man. I guess my streaming seems to be behaving fairly well today. That's a nice change. We've had a lot of problems lately with undependable streaming. Okay, it's time for me to go back to pen and ink, simply because I'm in danger of just messing around. If you follow me. But nope, not yet. Changed my mind. I just saw something that can be improved considerably, and that is the. I'm glad that I didn't overdo it, and I didn't make these trees too green. But I'm glad that I can come back and add more green to them. It's an easy fix, whereas if they were too green, that's not such an easy fix, right? I am going to use some opaque media, which will be certainly some gouache, possibly even a little bit of this cheap whiteout office supply product, whiteout. Possibly. It's a little more of a blunt tool, as you can imagine, but it often has a very special charm to it. Okay. Hang on just a second. Click upgrade to my mechanics here. Okay, more green. So I am going to use some gouache. I have a very particular trick that I sometimes use, a trick up my sleeve when I cheat and use an opaque medium like gouache. And that is, maybe because I'm partly embarrassed that some watercolor painter might see this and say, hey, he used gouache. I'm being kind of facetious here, I hope you understand. But only kind of facetious. There's a little tiny grain of truth in there. But I have a trick for getting away with it and for hiding it. And in case you missed that part of the broadcast, I'll tell you what it is. So if I put an opaque gouache down, I let it dry, and then I do traditional watercolor on top of that gouache, letting one of the edges or seams show. A pencil sharpener?
Something to write a message on.
Oh, here you go. So that I can actually get away with moida, get away with murder a little bit, and get away with cheating somewhat, because I can pretty skillfully, if you will, hide the fact that I used an opaque. So when you use opaque, it doesn't have to be the last word, it doesn't have to be the last touch on that any particular segment piece of your painting. You can do some watercolor on top of that opaque gouache, and it will, to a large degree, hide the fact that you, quote unquote, cheated. Great. Thanks, sweetie. Yep, sure is. Thanks. Appreciate it. That's my dear wife. She's going to deliver one of my portraits for me. Hang on just a second. I'm looking for a... Well, come on. Where is it? I guess this will do. I'm looking for a good Winsor Newton, good brush. Just realized I missed that little bit of shading there. There's a lantern hanging, kind of classic, at least, is it colonial? I don't know, American anyway, architectural element hanging right there. And I will probably, I don't know what I'm going to do. I could just do a little bit of opaque gouache on that lantern. Because it's such a focal point, though, I think probably that before I resort to cheating, quote unquote, right there, I think I will try to do some. Brush is way too small. Always use the biggest brush you can get away with, right? You know that, of course. Get away from that little tiny brush stuff. Ooh, gives me the heebie-jeebies. Once again, here I am darkening. I'm pushing the darks here, right here in the focal point, right here in the most important part of the illustration of the painting. Thinking. While I'm thinking, let me come up here and finish this tree. Just thinking. I think I'm going to go to some gouache. Got a little bit surprised that I'm going to it that. Okay, so I always try to have several tubes of fresh gouache in my supplies. Now, let me pick up my normal gouache tray. Whoops! There you go. Boy, that was exciting, wasn't it? Hang on, and now I need to pick you guys up. I just tripped over a power cord. that was carefully placed right behind my chair. All right. Let me show you my normal gouache tray. Get this out of the way so I don't spill on it. All right, so here's my gouache tray, and it's like a watercolor tray. You can use it over and over and over forever. You virtually never clean it, so to speak. You just use it the way it is, right? Hello, Warren Moses. Good to have you on board. No, it's me. It's, yeah, the fact that it goes blurry. I'll try to remember that and not move my camera as much. I thank you for that reminder. That is not you. That is definitely... Speaking of not moving my camera, that's called the camera falling down. So I have some technical, mechanical issues that I need to work out with this new system. All right, so I'm just showing you that to show that, but there's no white that I would trust. There's dried up white and some messy white, but I don't trust that. So bear with me just a minute here. Hang on. Sorry. To do some mechanical arranging here. You're falling again. I know some of you are saying this is so amateur. Such is live broadcasting, folks. And yes, I will try to fix this. It is amateur because I'm always trying something new. In this case, the newness is broadcasting looking straight down with two cameras. All right, that's my excuse. Let's get back. So I'm going to do some opaque white. So I just put a little dab of white right there. Now I can zoom back in a little bit again. The Facebook stream must not be very good because it says here we have 0 people watching. Well, it kind of takes the pressure off things, doesn't it? All right. Just because I put white out on this mixing paper, it doesn't mean I have to use pure white. I'm sure you understand that, right? But I am going to start with pretty pure white gouache. And I'm going to start right where I want it the most. Which is right here at the focal point. Right here at the center of interest. Now, there's a very good chance, you heard me say a little while, there's a very good chance that I will apply, after this dries, which of course won't take very long, that I will apply some watercolor washes on top of at least some of this whiteout. I'm calling it whiteout. You know what I mean, gouache. But that decision comes later. I don't have to decide right at the moment whether I'm doing that or not. It can come in a few minutes. And this, like everything else in water medium, it grows more, it transparentizes. It grows more transparent as it dries. So deciding to apply a second coat here in some of these areas. I'm thinking. I am thinking. Hello, Mr. All About Art. And Richard Williams, good to have you here. Good to have more than one focal point. Oh, Susan, it's Dan Nelson on YouTube, not Dan the Art Man? Wow. Thank you for that correction. Thank you. I'll try to correct myself here. Am I on camera? Yeah. So you can see how addictive this cheating in watercolor coming in and with an opaque white, it just pops, doesn't it? Oh, okay. So was it Susan who asked about more than one? No, Michael, Deborah. More than one focal point. Good question. Good question. I'll tell you, conventional wisdom, and this is, I'm about to question it. Conventional wisdom says you have a focal point. There is some considerable counter opinion to that says that that's sort of like an, I don't know, old wives' tales, putting it too strongly, but that's old thinking, that no, you don't have to have a focal point. In fact, David Dunlop is the one person who, at least some of the time, advocates a no focal point painting, which, okay, and then what does he mean by that? And you'd have to go to David Dunlop, subscribe to his channel. He's a very brainy guy, friend of mine, and he does a lot of heavy-duty research on things just like that. Is it true that you need a focal point? All right. Now here's what I'm wondering. According to the way I'm painting this, the light is coming from slightly behind to the right, so that it's the only surfaces that actually have pure light on them are these surfaces. But there's quite a bit of light coming back this way. And I'm trying to decide whether I want to do any painting on those. Yeah, I think I do. Okay, let's. Okay, now that I've put my gouache kit down, I'm going to pick it back up again. So now I'm going to be using mixes of this, some of this stuff, to do some of the light but not quite white sides of this painting, right? Ooh, thanks. Lunch delivered. Thanks. I'll try not to smack and try not to chew in your ears. Try not to let you guys know when I'm chewing. Okay, so I'm mixing up, for what it's worth, over here in the big tray right there in the middle. It was a pale green, and I'm adding some brownish stuff to it. You see how that looks? Well, let's just try some over here and see how I like it. Oh, as is often the case, it's great, it's just too dark. Let's lighten it up a good bit. Even that's too dark. So as is often the case when I'm remixing used gouache, I often have to put out, no matter what I do, I have to put out a fresh daub of white gouache. Let's try this now, see if it's the right color. Now this, on the shady side of this structure, I really don't mind, right at the moment, putting down a color that's a little too light, because, as I mentioned just a little while ago, one of the tricks that I play to cover up my cheating ways is I'll do some traditional watercolor on top of this, on top of this stuff that I'm doing right now. And very often I can successfully, pretty successfully, even to an experienced eye, I can fool. Now I don't feel compelled to have to work at it that hard on this particular painting, but it can be done. You can do a watercolor wash on top of this opaque stuff, and it pretty much obliterates the telltale signs of that you used an opaque medium. Okay, so we'll see. We'll find out if it'll work, if I'll be able to achieve that lofty goal on this particular painting. Yeah, as you can see, though, I'm getting this this structure right here to pop forward a little bit. Change, add some color to this now. Yeah, there we go, that's better. Now, as always, my concern here, I've got my higher degree of concern for the nature of the marks themselves than that I quote-unquote color in the lines. It's obvious that I'm coloring in the lines, right? And so you sort of have to rein in that childish impulse to color in the lines, because that is not necessarily the best mark. Unlike when we were children with our coloring books, like I had an older sister. She is 18 months older than me. So when we were, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, she was better at coloring than I was, which means she stayed in the lines better than I did, right? So that mindset needs to be remedied considerably when you're striving to do good art. Again, the grumpy realist voice inside my head is saying, "Now stay in the lines, stay in the lines." But I am familiar with his wily ways, and I'm comfortable slapping him down. Gently, of course. No real alter egos were damaged in the making of this video. How about that term? Real alter egos. Good grief. No alter egos were damaged in the making of this video. I slap him down right nicely. Ooh, here's a good place for some true white. So let's go back to my little piece of paper, my temporary palette here. It has some white on it because I think theoretically this should be pure white. Let me put it down, and if it's too much, if I don't like it, then I'll tone it down later. But I think, yeah, that is a little bit much, but as I said, I can easily. Now, let me a word of caution here. If you try this dragging of a watercolor wash across gouache, please keep in mind you only get one quick drag. You can't come back again in twice. So there'll be nothing like this, no brushy, because then you just turn it into complete horrible watercolor, opaque watercolor soup, translucent watercolor soup, which is, you know, is a horrible effect. So boy, you probably knew that already, but it's better to point that out in case any of you try it. You get one swipe until it dries, and you can try another swipe after it dries. But it is kind of a tricky business to make it look like watercolor on top of the gouache. And the trick is mostly just, again, hit it once and leave it. Don't try to come back and do it twice. All right, it has been a while since I just sat back and looked at this thing. How am I liking it? I'm liking it. By the way, I'm really cheating. I can't tell you right. I was off camera. I'm actually doing some sky holes. That means I'm an addicted oil painter at the moment. Oh, another little trick I forgot to mention. Again, to help disguise the fact that I used opaque medium here, would be to do a little bit of pen and ink on top of the gouache, right? That pushes it back and makes it look considerably less gouachy, if I can use that term. Right? So again, another little trick, how to cheat and get away with it. I still wouldn't try to get away with it if I was actually entering a watercolor competition. I would not try. Okay, can change gears here for a minute. When I sat back and took a fresh look, what to my wondering eyes should appear, but an opportunity for more color in the painting. So out with the gouache, back with the watercolor, and I'm going to blot up one of the wells of my watercolor and mix up. I want some pretty punchy orange. Pretty intense orange, and I'm getting this somewhat from the photograph. Do you see this little, because of the roof right here, I don't know, there's a little intensification of light orange right there, and I think, let me get a Kleenex ready, I think I can get away with adding some color to the painting, which is almost always a good thing. As I like to say it, all things being equal, and many times things are not equal, but all things being equal, generally speaking, our eyes would rather see more color, not less. Okay? So I take exception to the oft spouted and now overly, what's the word? Anyway, the less is more thing, the less is more mantra has gotten way too much play in our culture. People say it because they want to sound smart, because the person they heard say it really did sound smart. Anyway, it's, in my humble opinion, and you all know how dreadfully humble I am, in my humble opinion, it's an overused concept, generally speaking. Of course, there are times when less is more, but it's still an ironic statement. It's not a definitive or literal statement. It's fun because it's ironic. That means it's not literally true. Anyway, so let me get off my rant here for a minute and say, so generally speaking, More is more. Generally speaking, our eyes would rather see yes color than no color is the way I like to put it. We'd rather see more than not less. So I just, as I sat back a minute ago, wait a minute. I can actually pump, good word, pump some more color into this thing and please our eyeballs, please the viewer. Again, generally speaking, ooh, nice, wow. Oh, that was sweet. Oh my goodness, oh, I was off camera a little bit, sorry. Okay, so I was doing this wall yellow-orange, and I just realized, oh, I could bring that over into the tree, and it just made a difference. I think honestly I could do the same thing up here in the sky. I did not see that coming. Now, that's nice. A little bit too much of a good thing. So there we go. Wow. I did not see orange, yellow-orange coming into this sky. I didn't see it till I saw it, and then I did it and said, ooh, yeah. That's so sweet when that happens, isn't it? When you're doing artwork, and just the joy of discovery, all of a sudden you see something you didn't see a minute ago. And looky there. So somebody yesterday said, "Boy, you sure like orange." It turns out they hadn't seen nothing yet, because I'm really, all of a sudden, I'm an explosion of orange here, because I'm seeing the same thing down here, and the same thing. Watch, boom. All right, now I can't touch that anymore right now. In other words, I just dragged some orange, and I was thinking blue, but I just did some watercolor on top of that gouache. You with me? Do a little bit more, right there. So now I have virtually hidden the fact that I've cheated here. I've got a little bit of an ink line, and I've got a watercolor wash on top of what was, an offensive opaque medium. Wow, y'all. This painting just went into a new, I hope you can see it. It just went into a new level. I wish you could see the original. Warren, be back in a few. Thank you, Warren, appreciate it. Hearing the word lunch made you be back in a few. That is funny. I'm going to do a little bit more of this gold, yellow, orange up here in the sky. I did not see this coming, folks. I was thinking I might and I still might make the sky more blue. But adding this glow to the sky has just unified the palette of this painting in a truly amazing way. All right, now that I've done that, though, I see an opportunity for blue down here. Anywhere else? Yeah, this roof. In actuality, this roof up here is orange. In reality, it's like everything else in this building. It's actually orange, but I think it's going to work better if I give it a tiny hint of blue. And I already did the shadow one time, but it's gotten lighter and lighter, so I'm going to come back and reinforce that with a little bit of blue. So one thing leads to another, doesn't it? One thing just leads to another. All right, so the adding this blue down here all of a sudden opens an opportunity for me to add more blue into these windows. Now this is, by the way, some of my batteries I fear are going to die dead gone because my phones make noise if they're plugged in. When I'm broadcasting, the phones are running unplugged, they're running on battery. And I don't know how long I've been going, but I have a suspicion that I'm getting really to the edge on two of my controlling devices that are controlling my camera. So if I just suddenly disappear on you, it's been lovely. It wasn't anything you said. It's just we ran out of juice. Okay, so here's a principle here. Generally speaking, so this is similar. Generally speaking, our eyes would rather see more color, not less. I'm just repeating what I said a few minutes ago. I'm going to flesh that out a little bit more. Generally speaking, our eyes would also rather see more different colors. In other words, all things being equal, generally speaking, a full range of colors is preferable over a limited palette. Now, and this is really ironic because I'm a person, I love gloomy, moody, brownish, grayish, moody paintings. I think I like that way more than most people. I've told this funny incident several times over the years, but about 30 years ago when I was a full-time illustrator, I had a good friend Jeff, who was a graphic designer, very, very excellent professional graphic designer. I had done some work for him, but he knew my work. And I don't remember why the subject came up, but at one point in our visiting one day, he said, you know, Dan, he said, your favorite colors are brown and gray. And it was only hilarious because it was so obviously true. You can see shades of that, if you will, on my illustration page to this day. So having that as a bit of a caveat, I love muted, gloomy gray-brown colors in a painting. I love a limited palette. But going back to my earlier expression, all things being equal, however, given our natural disposition, most people's eyes would rather see a full range of color rather than limited. So this blue down here in the parking lot and in these windows becomes, and the green here, and just a minute ago, by the way, I saw an opportunity for some sweet purple, and I don't know where it was, but that doesn't matter. I'm just going to go ahead and put some fairly clean purple violet paint on this brush. I'm going to start sneaking around, hunting for excuses for purple. Now, why am I suddenly doing purple? For the very principle that I just mentioned to you, because all things considered, generally speaking, our eyes would rather have more color. And at the moment, there's very little purple. Here it was up here, that's what it was. There's very little purple in this painting, right? Now, of course, you could say, well, of course, it doesn't need to be. Does there need to be purple in every painting? Of course not, of course not. No, nothing like that. Does there need to be every color in every painting? No, but you better know the rule first, and the rule is, all things being equal, human eyeballs would rather see yes color than no color. I'm just putting it in a strange way to help it stick in our mind. All things being equal, we'd rather see more color, not less. So, and again, all of a sudden, just a minute ago, I said, wait a minute, I have an opportunity here for purple. What was I thinking? No, I wasn't berating myself, I promise. I was not saying what was I thinking, because clearly it's a process, just a building process, little by little by little. Oh, I'm loving this, just loving what this purple is doing. Just little kisses. And the presence of blue and purple, of course, is actually making the orange, which there's no question this is an orange painting. And actually, let me show you the reference again. Why is it an orange painting? Well, duh, because it's an orange building. That's why. Okay, but the presence of the purple and the blue is actually making the orange more orange. And it's a pleasant orange. I'm not complaining a bit. I think it's a nice effect. If you don't agree with me, Leave your comment, I will delete it. Leave your comment, I will unfriend you. I'm sorry, I'm kidding. Although I will admit that yesterday evening, I had a couple comments on a couple of my videos, not my current ones, these are old historical videos. And I realize I have a weakness. I do not take well to stupid people making stupid comments. That's a character flaw that I'm seriously working on. You'll be glad to know that. David, if David was here, he'd be glad to know that. And heck, I just deleted them both. It's just stupid. You don't need that. And I like intelligent critique. I really do. Boy, I would like more of that. But these were just like, you are so dumb. One person was complaining about my etching video. He said, it's not real etching. Well, I say that in the video. I guess he didn't watch the video. I say in the video, this is not real etching. He said other things too that gave me to think he was of a slightly trollish disposition, so I just slightly erased him from my... I don't do that to everything that bugs me, but anyway, I'm confessing my sins to you right now, okay? Thank you. I'm beginning to feel better already. Hey, I don't like that mark that I just made, so I'm going to get here's my scrubber brush again. It's a bristle brush, good for lifting out color. It has a little brushy effect to it. There we go. All right, hey, now that I'm got this in my hand, I wonder if I can lift out, remember I talked a while ago, if you were here, I talked about this lantern right here. Rather than using, at the moment, rather than using the pretty radical Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, I'm just using very, very, very traditional watercolor technique, which is lifting up. Okay, so I got it that much lighter. Fair enough? A little bit, not very much lighter. But if I'm going to turn on that light, however, there needs to be some of that light. Did you hear a kid screaming just then? We torment our children regularly around here. For those of you who don't know, 4 are wonderful. We love it. We really do. 4 of our grandchildren live with us, and their parents have been for over 2.5 years. We thought it was going to be a lot shorter time, but we're actually not complaining. And at the moment, with all this craziness that's going on, we're actually quite glad they're in the house with us. All right, how many bricks should I draw up here? Right, let's do it. Oh, that's not quite dry. I better wait for that to dry. I'm very close, am I not? Am I not? That's rhetorical. Am I not very close? I am very close to being completely finished with this. It's been quite the journey. Yeah, let's do a little bit of cross-hatching, not much, just a little bit. And the primary purpose, again, of this cross-hatching is, sure, it's a shading technique, it's a values technique, that is, it makes it darker, right? But it would be much more realistic, of course, to do this shading, darkening, values with just the paint, right? It'd be much more realistic. So why am I doing cross-hatching? And the answer is, it's just, whoops, I'm sorry, I've gotten off the camera. Hang on just a second to get some things out of my way. Right. Why am I doing it? Why am I doing shading with cross-hatching? And it's just pure eye candy. It's just texture. line, shape, value, design. Texture is one of the, in my opinion, by the way, one of the most underrated elements of design. When you think about, when you think of the classic elements of design, which are the most important ones? And most people, I think, would put color ahead of texture, but listen to this, I actually put texture as, if you will, more foundational, more important even than color, which is because, and here's my quick explanation or defense of that. It's easy to imagine a painting that's a good painting with virtually no color but fantastic texture. Hang on a second, I'm going to give you an example. I just pulled this up the other day. Oh, good. Yep, here it is. I want to give you an example. One of my favorite, now, I'm not a big fan of everything in the modern art world, of course. A lot of it's too preachy, but here's the name, Anselm Kiefer. Anselm Kiefer, pretty famous modern artist, and using the term in the colloquial common sense of the word, not in an academic technical sense, when I'm calling him a modern artist. Anyway, Anselm Kiefer, and he may actually be modern, I don't know, I think he's from Germany, be that as it may. Look up Anselm Kiefer, K-I-E, I think, F-E-R, but Google will fix you if you spell it wrong, and look up North Carolina Art Museum, because I believe we, here in North Carolina, have one of his very best paintings. And the painting, if I remember right, is about 20 feet wide and 15 feet tall, maybe 25 feet wide and 15 feet tall, and is all gray. It's all gray and brown, but it's a great example of this principle that do you need, which is more important, color or texture? And I know it's kind of a false dichotomy. You can't really pit the two against each other, but it's okay, just for fun, just as a mental exercise, which is more important. And I contend that texture is actually more paramount or more fundamental even than color. So that goes back to my, why am I doing cross-hatching? Instead of just using the watercolor to achieve, a rounded or graded or shaded effect. And that's the answer, because texture, in my opinion, is even a higher, on the hierarchy of values, it's higher. Now, is there anything higher than texture? Oh, yeah. And it is values, in my opinion. And play of light, in particular, is one that is a values statement. I say the most important aspect of any painting is play of light. Right? And am I achieving it? Am I doing play of light here? I think I am. So I have pretty much done already what I thought I might do when I've put opaque gouache down on several bits of this painting here and there and here and there. And most of it has, since I did it, has received a watercolor wash on top of it. So other than this right here, I can disguise the gouachedness of that. I just put some more lines on top of it that hides the telltale signs of it being an opaque medium to a considerable degree. It doesn't do it perfectly, but it does quite a much. So our eyes don't go right here and go boom, gouache. Right now, I don't think. Just about finished, just about going to end this in a minute. some gouache up here that hadn't been gouache, that hadn't been washed. That would make it some unwashed gouache. And you know, that's what we're concerned about. We're not great fans of unwashed gouache. I'm doing more orange on top of some mild bake stuff. The building is glowing quite pleasantly, I would say. Yeah, let's do some texture. I've been debating much off and on about whether to do any marks there. Finally decided yes. Texture in there. Some here, just a little bit. A hint of shingles. All right, I didn't do a spatter. I think I'm okay with that, but I might do might do a little bit more fake spatter, manual, by hand here. Huh. Crazy, huh? Why does the spatter, in this case even a fake spatter, why does it work? That's a good question. Why does it look good? I don't know. But I think it does. All right, you ready? Since we've gone this far, let's do the great unveiling. It's always a little bit like Christmas. It's always kind of exciting to peel off the masking tape. It's just about lost you for a second here. Peel off the masking tape and see that nice clean edge. This is not everybody, of course, likes this edge in their watercolors. A lot of people paint to the edge of the paper, and I respect that highly. That's a very valid approach. For some reason, my personality just seems to favor this look. So, by the way, I was pretty careful then that I'm charging my client for 10 by 12. Is that it? Forgive me. Let me erase it. I mean, measure it. Let me measure it. Tell you, I'm charging my client for a 10 by 12, yeah, inch, and that's how big the image is. So I don't want to, charge them for the size of the paper, and for them to complain, hey, we're paying you for such and such a painting, and it's not big. Anyway, so I was pretty careful how I placed this tape to make sure that it is exactly 10 by, just for what it's worth, it's exactly 10 by 12 inches. And I always like to see it without all that horrible green and blue, right? It helps see the color better. Whew, there. I think I like it. I will keep it. I'm going to sign it, by the way, up here in the painting, because I think they'll probably frame it at least pretty close up to that edge. So I don't want to sign it in the white area. Oh, and they had asked that I identify the building, and I think the way to do that, because it can't fit on the sign, is down here in the painting. Yeah. Okay, so it's First Step Services. Yeah. that. I didn't misspell anything. All right, first step services. There. I might post a copy of this on my YouTube community page, just so you can see a little bit better image of it in its finished state. Be that as it may. Now I'm anxious to get back to my portraits that are over my right shoulder, languishing. Come back to us, they're saying. I really get tired of them saying that, so I suppose I will get back to them in a minute. Again, all the dots that I'm doing right now are not primarily in service to any kind of similitude or desire for realism, right? All these lines, especially the kind of stuff I'm doing right now, is just there's a funny little trick. I don't know why that looks good, but I think it does. It looks a little commercial, I know, but for this particular subject matter, I think it's okay. You know what? Before we go, let's do one, maybe final thing, at least official final thing, and that is I'm going to add a little bit of light to this porch light here. Not white. I'm going to make it warm yellow. I would like it to be barely visible, would suit me just fine. Indeed, I feel like I've achieved that right there. I won't necessarily keep broadcasting just for you to see it, but I might do very pale wash on top of what I just did right there. But maybe not, that looks pretty nice. Early on, I kind of want to do some shutters up here, just real opaque, real subtle, helping accentuate this the yellow glow that was quite the abstract accident that happened up here in the painting that I like so much. Same thing down here. Okay, so see, I'm just still going on. Be careful not to just keep going. But those are some nice marks I just made. I'm glad I did that. Oh, another trick for diminishing the gouache effect, by the way, is just blur it a little bit. Put it down and then just mess it up with your finger. So that's what you just saw me do there. I'm going to do it again right here. Put down some marks. They're a little bit too hard edged. Whoops, isn't that funny? I'm supposed to not get any phone calls right now, but I am getting one. So, all right, I need to get that. Thanks guys for watching. Be back in a little while. Today, bye-bye.